So we got joinpapa.com, which is, reasonable name, I think. And at the time, join and, kind of these adages were commonplace in the URL, space. So I thought, okay, join Papa. It sounds like a cool new tech company. Like that was a popular thing to do. But the problem is we sell to insurance companies and all of them started calling our company Join Papa.
Actually, that's just the domain name. The brand name is Papa, if you don't mind.
And there was a lot of debate and they're like, what are you even talking about? I tried to get Papa.com and the guy, I said, listen, I'll buy Papa.com for $2,000. And he goes, $4 million. And I'm like, okay, $3,000.
Well, now we're negotiating, yeah.
And so I found out who owned it, and it was just like a guy out of Germany that was sitting on it since 1999. Papa.com is like one of the most common, Papa's a commonplace term. I go, 3,000, he goes, 7 million. I'm like, okay. A ping right after we closed our Series D, and it said Papa.com come down to still very expensive, but I would say very reasonable considering, a 4-letter domain. I guess it was COVID and good timing and the guy needed some money, or he was at least more willing to accept something. And I just bought it with a credit card.
But are you still master of your domain?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Master of Your Domain. Please welcome to today's episode, Andrew Parker, who's the founder and CEO of Papa.com. Also, I've been told by my children that I'm supposed to say, follow us on YouTube and smash that subscribe button. So please go ahead and do that. Super high level. Andrew, thank you for being here. Could you tell us a little bit more about what Papa does and the value you guys provide?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me today. I'm happy to talk about Papa and the Papa.com story, which is quite fun. Papa is a national companion care platform. We provide companionship, assistance, and transportation to older adults and families. And we're available through Medicare Advantage health plans, through Medicaid, as well as employers and long-term care insurance. Really people that are looking to provide caregiving and respite. And our pals do all sorts of things for our members. We've done over almost 3 million in-home visits across 7,000 cities in the United States. And people could schedule that all through Papa.com.
There you go. What are some of the more common tasks, if someone has like a Papa pal that they'll wind up doing?
Yeah, a typical day in life is you go to their house, you help them with the groceries, you help them with a light bulb that went out, you check for, you kind of become the eyes and ears of them or their family or their health plan or their employer. And you'll just spend time with them. But then, maybe they'll say, oh, could you help me with Facebook and get my grandkids want to talk to me on FaceTime and can you show me how that works or what have you. And we tend to drive them. About 25% of the time transportation is involved. So it's like house tasks, tech help, transportation, pet help. We provide parental support, caregiving respite. So it's really anything you would do for your family. We've essentially tech enabled that kind of this end-to-end platform that's, training, background checking, and then providing a caregiver that we call pals.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, there's all the practical implications, and then there's just like the mental health piece of having somebody there you can talk to, who can be, physically there in person. It's an amazing service, and the added benefit of being generally covered by insurance makes it amazing. Well, enough talking about business. Let's start nerding out. We've been just hanging here too long. We got to get into domain names. And first of all, Andrew and I kind of got connected many years ago. I think right as you guys were getting started, right as Row was getting off the ground, and kind of like a boom of healthcare companies. So it's great to be able to circle back here and jam a little bit. So maybe let's start with just the name overall. Papa, great name, obviously amazing domain name. But tell us more about, as you guys were coming up with the idea and thinking about this concept, maybe some of the ideas you went through around naming and how you kind of landed on this one.
Yeah, like everything in my life, it happened very, very quick. Once I know, I guess, so to speak. And so my cousin and I originally founded Papa. We literally came together and said, let's come up with an idea. But we started talking about, just personal experiences. And we're having a lot of trouble with my grandpa, our grandpa. He needed companionship and assistance and the things that we provide now. But he didn't need home care. Home care is bathing and toileting.
Right.
He only needed someone a couple times a week. He didn't need someone every day. So there really was nothing. So I thought, what if we could get Papa a pal? And so I went to Facebook and said, who wants to be a pal to Papa? And right when we came up with the idea, we started testing it, right after. But we thought, what should we call it? And I'm thinking about like assistants or on, some cool Uber-like name. And my cousin, giving him the credit, said, "Oh, maybe we should call it Papa." I'm like, "It's genius." And right then and there, first thing we try to do is get Papa.com. And
Yeah, just type it in and grab it, before someone else does.
we tried to get it for $9. Didn't work. It was already taken. So we went with joinpapa.com, at least back then.
Nice. And
Oh, and Papa was what I called my grandpa. That was a core element.
that's what I was going to ask. That it seems like it had some meaning to it.
Yeah. Well, and then we were worried about, is it just for men? Oh, no, it's not just for men. Though I may need some just for men, building a company into this day. But no, it's really what's funny about it, when my mom and I were talking about Papa.com, or Papa at the time, we were saying, it's not just for men, it's people assisting people aging. And I thought that was so fitting. But it ended up sticking. It's, of course, for mamas and papas and all different sorts of people that, just need a little bit of companion care.
Yeah, absolutely. And you probably just blast mamas and papas all the time in the office, I would imagine. Fine band. Cool. And so that was early on. That was what, like 2017, as you guys were getting kicked off, 2018?
I came up with the idea originally like 2016, but I was still working. It was just kind of a fun side project. And I started doing Papa full-time middle of 2017. And then we launched, our true launch outside of early testing in January of 2018 in South Florida, which is where I still am.
Nice. What did your Papa think of the idea and the name?
Unfortunately, he had dementia and was not able to understand it. However, my grandmother loved it. And actually, she became one of our first investors. But then we felt bad when we actually raised our seed funding that my grandma gave us such a big check. It was like $20,000. And I don't know my grandma had any money. And we gave it back to her. And I realized now that was messed up.
Did she get to keep the equity, or you?
No, and my mom, and my grandma actually, since then, it's like almost 7 years she's passed, my grandpa's passed. But my mom jokes, sometimes you screwed the family over as an internal joke.
I'm sorry to hear about grandmother, but also, cap table was getting crowded, grandma,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. She got it.
Gotcha. Okay, so you launched then with joinpapa.com, and clearly you had your eye on the prize from early on. Tell me about that process. Like, how did that go, and how did you eventually kind of land on the domain?
So we got joinpapa.com, which is reasonable name, I think. And at the time, join and kind of these adages were commonplace in the URL space. So I thought, okay, join Papa. It sounds like a cool new tech company. Like, that was a popular thing to do. But the problem is we sell to insurance companies, and all of them started calling our company Join Papa. They're like, "Oh, have you guys heard of Join Papa?" And I'm like, oh my God, it would piss me off to no end.
Actually, that's just the domain name. The brand name is Papa, if you don't mind.
And there was a lot of debate, and they're like, "What are you even talking about?" And spent a lot of time, wasting time there. But I always wanted Papa.com. And so I tried to get Papa.com, and the guy, I said, "Listen, I'll buy Papa.com for $2,000. And he goes, $4 million. And I'm like, okay, $3,000.
Well, now we're negotiating. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't have you.
Who owned it? Do you know who owned it? Was it an investor? Was it a guy?
It was just a random dude. It took quite a bit of digging. And at the time, I guess, probably still, they're obviously better now, but it was a little harder to find out. I think Whois was the platform. I don't know if that's advanced since then. And so I found out who owned it. And it was just like a guy out of Germany that was sitting on it since 1999. Papa.com is like one of the most common, Papa is a commonplace term. What's interesting is almost every culture, or a lot of cultures, at least not every, but many, Papa means dad or grandpa or something. And so it's like cross language as well. And so I went to get Papa.com, and, this happened. And he goes, I go 3,000. He goes 7 million. I'm like, okay.
Hey, you only came up 1,000. He came down 1 million. So that's pretty good.
No, he went up. He went from 4 million to 7. He went higher. No, he wouldn't even come down. It was going in the complete wrong direction. No, this is terrible.
That's the classic German negotiation.
Yeah, it didn't work out for me in this moment. So I kind of forgot about it or put it to the back burner. Then when we raised money, I'm like, okay, we're going to go get Papa.co. And I was able to buy that for quite a large sum. But Papa.com was still in the multi-millions. I was not having it. But I did save kind of an alert on all the websites. And I randomly get a ping right after we closed our Series D, and it said Papa.com like come down to like still very expensive, but I would say very reasonable considering 4-letter domain. And I was way worried at this point because Papa, my company, has become a brand, and we've been in the news, and I thought maybe the guy would see, and I guess it was COVID and good timing, and the guy needed some money, or he was at least more willing to accept something, and I just bought it with a credit card.
I mean, one, pretty impressive humble brag that you have that type of spending limit in your credit card. But amazing. So he just put it up for sale, and it was like for sale on just one of the platforms.
He put it through all that stress and years, and what I think I do think happened, and I'm not sure, and this is something maybe as a tactic or you could use it. I think it was an accidental tactic. So we got Papa.co. Another big mistake. Our health plan customers would never remember the .co. They went to .com. It was a dead website, and it actually really had this negative consequence. So pretty rapidly after changing everything to Papa.co, I'm like, oh my God, we need something else. We need to go back to Join Papa. I never fully cut it over because it would cause this issue. But I think when we got Papa.co and he saw probably, I think it may have been listed how much we paid for it, or at least the transaction, how much it was, he said, oh my God, I missed my shot. Papa John's doesn't want it. The Pope didn't want it. Like, this is the last Papa standing, And so
that's funny. I mean, I guess you didn't have much more direct interaction with the guy because you just bought on.
No, it was, but all around the same time, and it was interesting.
You never really know. You never really know what's going on. Like, it could have been he felt like, oh man, I missed my shot. It could have been he needed cash. Could have been like, who knows? I've had sometimes people pass away and their kids put it up for auction. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild out there.
It was a lot. It was nowhere near not even anywhere close, but it was, I thought, fair on both sides. Like and by the way, if he said that in the beginning, I wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway. So the timing was good for both of us. I guess that's when deals come together.
That's amazing. How important did you think, I mean, obviously, because you were dealing with the health plans, insurance, et cetera, you felt like probably had to go back to a .com just from like a reputation and just like a fat fingering and people not understanding a different .co TLD. But how important do you think having like the Papa.com has been for the business in general? Has that is there a quantifiable impact you feel like you can feel, or just overall, like anecdotally?
Yeah, I would say not as much as it probably would have been at like a row. Definitely not. Like everything you thought of, I presume, is around like consumer response and adoption, all that stuff, versus ours is mostly not, though our end users are consumers. We're trying to get large organizations to buy us. But I do think it had kind of an overarching impact to our business throughout all elements. But I wouldn't give it too much credit. It's more like Papa.com now has like an allure to it where we could, one, everyone could find us. Two, I think of where we're at with Papa as the early innings. Medicare Advantage and employers are one route of which we've been working with, but also one day maybe there is a consumer play. And where I do think it's been helpful to us too, that we haven't talked about that much as an organization, is in recruiting Papa Pals. Because the Papa Pals are more of the demographic that responds to, kind of a kitschier, cutesy name, which I think is important. Our name represents what I want to be representing, and so easy to talk about. I joke like I don't have business cards because if you can't remember Andrew, maybe. Well, now we're on a podcast, so I guess now everyone that could remember my email, it's pretty easy to guess, and I think that's fine. Like in healthcare,
Andrew at joinpapa.com.
Exactly. Well, that one too. I have all the Andrew nomenclature, so you don't have to worry about it. But so I think it had an impact. But our pals, for example, we barely do any marketing. Our CAC is coming down to practically zero, and that's 20 things, but definitely being able to leverage that, and it makes me feel good. I don't know if that matters, but
no, it does. I mean, especially being in the founder seat, like some of these things just need to feel good, and it might not even pay out right out of the gate, but over the long term, what you're trying to build, this is a valuable asset. I think the pals recruitment piece is a really good point. Something I've heard from others that I also think probably relevant to you, but I hadn't spent as much time thinking about. But when you have like that short character.com, you like your emails get answered. Like people get back to you.
It seems real.
Yeah. In a different way than if you're like a Join Papa or whatever, a Papa.co. It's like, oh my gosh, like Andrew at Papa.com just reached out. Like I got to get back to this guy. So especially given that you're in like the Medicare healthcare, health system space where you need to get a response sometimes from some of these folks.
It lends credibility, 100%.
Yeah, different than like as you said, a consumer facing company where we're doing TV spots, you're doing billboards and radio, and like the direct type in traffic is very valuable.
I'm hoping by the time I ever decide to do anything like that, it could just be very simple, like papa.com. That's all it is, and people know. So we're doing the 10 years of marketing through developing a good product and service, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, that there's an argument to doing it that way. That's awesome. Well, that's a great story, and it seems like you're able to lock this up also like a little bit earlier in life cycle, maybe even ahead of some of what you need to do on the consumer side, and wound up getting a great price just by waiting. So
It's like a stock market, effectively.
yeah, just wait for the right time. Amazing.
This is not stock advice, but yeah, it worked this time.
Yeah, you're not a licensed.
Not a licensed broker.
Cool. Well, Andrew, thanks for sharing the story. This is super interesting. Congrats on an amazing business and a four-letter.com like this. I think both are equally exciting.
Very, very much so. Thank you so much.